the political leadership decided that, you know, this open-ended war on terror, which, I mean, all of us remember from the weeks and months after that conflict, talking about, would it ever end? I mean, how do you declare war on something where you could never, who is it? How will we ever know, how do you start a conflict when you know, you'll never know that we've won it? And here we are 9 years later, 8 years later, and we're still in the same, we're still in the same conflict. And that if we don't enforce, if we don't get the political structures of the country to actually assert its authority to manage the conflict, besides just the executive, besides just the Defense Department, we will continue to find ourselves in a never-ending hole, and we have to find a way to get out of it. And the best way, I think, is through the legislative branch, whether the congressional level or the state levels, actually taking action to move us forward. So, and with that, I have the pleasure to introduce Jamin Raskin. Jamie is the senator from Tacoma Park, Silver Spring, so his district is just to the west of my district, to the east of my district. He sits just to the west of me on the Senate floor, as we have a chance to sit together on the Senate floor. And just as a personal word, I didn't know Jamie before we were elected, and I try not to assume, and maybe Mike feels the same way, just because you're sitting in the same chamber with somebody, you're not necessarily going to be friends with them. But the personal relationship that I've been able to develop with Jamie will tell a great story about the 2 red minivans and our efforts on marriage equality together, but on a variety of issues. It's been an honor to serve with him, and I'm sure you will be, as the entire Maryland Senate is always impressed when they have a chance to hear Jamin Raskin speak.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks to my colleague and friend, Rich Madaleno. We do get to sit next to each other, and we are lead co-sponsors of the marriage equality bill in Maryland, and I'm an openly straight member of the Maryland Senate, the straight but not narrow. Rich was referring to the fact that our parking spaces in the Senate garage happen to be right next to each other, and I like to tell the tale of 2 red minivans of 2 increasingly middle-aged and I don't want to say portly, but both of us are putting on a little weight as we get older. Guys who have kids. I've got 3, Rich has 2. Both of us are in committed relationships, and we both have red minivans with Obama stickers on the back. Mine has a Raskin sticker on the back too. I think his has a Madaleno sticker. But we drive in every day, and we basically lead the exact same kind of life when we're in the legislative session, except I get all of the benefits for me and my wife Sarah that are attendant to marriage, and we've counted more than 500 of them, and Rich and Mark don't get them, and there's no reason for that other than prejudice and bigotry and discrimination, and it will be a proud day when Maryland joins Vermont in Massachusetts, and we have the chance to stop discriminating on that basis. I'm delighted to be invited to join you to talk about the question of who decides about war. I wanted to start by invoking our last great Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, who spoke of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. This was obviously not the way that we began. We began as a slave republic of Christian white male property owners over the age of 21 in most of the states. But there's been an historical struggle to vindicate the democratic idea, which is contained in the Declaration of Independence, consent of the governed, and the ideals of liberty and equality that Jefferson set down there. But we've always had rival forms of government that have coexisted within America. We have had the democratic impulse and imperative. We've had the Republican forms of government. We have had since Alexander Hamilton, a kind of atavistic monarchical impulse. Since the 1940s and 50s, we've had the national security state apparatus grow up with the CIA and the NSA and associated security agencies. And as you can see in Michael Moore's new movie, there are those who are committed to a corporate state, essentially, where the rest of the society exists for the benefit of corporate America and the demands and requirements of Wall Street. So we don't have one clear form of government. However, I wanted to really focus on one thought in response to Morten Halperin's very interesting talk this morning. And he began with the point, which strikes me as indisputably right, but also misleading, that we have to distinguish between who gets to decide about war and whether we actually go to war. And he wanted to make the nice lawyer's point that you can be for a war, but still say Congress needs to declare it, just like theoretically you could be against the war, but not have any care or solicitude for what the Constitution says. What's misleading about that formulation is that it implies that the Constitution itself is perfectly neutral as to war as an option for a democratic republic. When in fact, a crucial part of our constitutional design was to make war unlikely as possible. And I thought, because one of my students is here, Kate Kelly, who's in my first year constitutional law class, it puts me less in the mind of a political polemicist, so I'm not going to filibuster. I'm just going to take you through the provisions of the Constitution, which I think embody the anti-war Enlightenment sensibility of the people who wrote our Constitution. And I'm going to identify 7 or 8 of them that I want you to think about as we talk about the proper role of the states and the people in the dialogue over whether or not there should be war. So let's start in Article 1, which of course sets forth the powers of Congress. And I want to start with the power of impeachment. Obviously, it begins in the House. The House brings articles of impeachment, and the Senate gets to hear trials of impeachment for high crimes and misdemeanors. Of course, from a liberal Enlightenment perspective, the kind that was personified in the lives of people like Jefferson and Ben Franklin and Tom Paine, there was no greater high crime or misdemeanor than taking the population illegally and unjustly into war. The whole point of democratic insurgency and revolution against rule by kings was that kings were constantly immersing the public in wars against other kings for their personal vainglory or profit or honor, and that we needed to create structural checks against that temptation. So the impeachment clauses are an important reminder that the people govern and the president serves at the sufferance of the people as long as he or she is going to follow the law. All right, let's go to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11, which has been invoked, which states that Congress has the power to declare war and to make rules concerning captures on land and water. Again, a very clear and exclusive delegation of the war-making power to Congress itself. Look at Article 1, Section 8, Clause 16, which provides that Congress has the power to organize, arm, and discipline the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. Again, a crucial war power assigned to the states, and remember that the founders were deeply suspicious of standing armies and wanted to make sure that the army was something that was anchored in the states and the state legislative power over the militias. All right, let's go to Article 2, which specifies the powers of the presidency. And go to Article 2, Section 2, and let's handle with some care the clause that is so promiscuously thrown about Commander-in-Chief. Okay, the very first section of Section 2. the President shall be Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. Okay, so the President is Commander-in-Chief of our militias only when they are called into the actual service of the United States, which implies the things that Representative Fisher was talking about, which is that we need a formal, constitutionally authorized legislative operation of a call, and when that call is over, then the constitutional authorization ceases under Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution. All right, let's go to Article 6. Article 6, Section 2 provides that the Constitution and laws of the United States are the supreme law of the land. And it's always but both a little bit funny to me, but a little bit melancholy when you hear leading foreign policy and national security experts like Morton Halperin finish up their talks by saying, but of course, nobody follows the Constitution. But the Constitution, if we are going to have a written Constitution, if we believe in what Justice Marshall said in Marbury versus Madison, that it's emphatically the province and the duty of the court to say what the law is and that the Constitution is supreme, then we must follow what the Constitution says. And how do we get into a situation